Helldivers 2 had a rough launch but has rebounded very quickly, climbing up the Steam charts with over 400,000 people playing at the same time and selling over 1 million copies in less than a week. The hype train is full steam ahead, but is this game really that good? I'm going to hit some of the positives, negatives, and concerns moving forward to help you make a more informed decision. Helldivers 2 does a lot of things right. It can be a fast-paced, chaotic experience with a lot more depth to it than you might originally think. There's a surprising amount of different environments and weather effects which can actually affect things in-game and are not just cosmetic. This goes hand in hand with a great variety of enemies. As I climbed up the difficulty levels, I was really surprised at how many new ones I kept seeing. Not only are there two completely different enemy factions, the robots and the bugs, but if the first game is an indicator, there will be a third and possibly more added later on. Also, the map layouts are randomly generated and you can choose between multiple different planets to go to at any time, so you will never be running the same exact level over and over and over and over again. All of these things are huge for a game where the loop is basically drop in, complete mission objectives, and exfil back out. Speaking of missions, this is another thing that Helldivers 2 does pretty well. There's a nice variety and you aren't stuck playing a certain one at any given time. There's always multiple options to choose from on each planet, and again, other planets you can go to if you want even more options. I thought missions would get stale over time, but as you go up in difficulty, there are new mission modifiers and side objectives that get added on and keep things fresh. This difficulty system is also something that I like, and if you do play this game, don't get discouraged early. For those that don't know, you need to complete a set of missions on each difficulty to unlock the next one up. The first couple difficulty levels, trivial and easy, are just that. There won't be a ton of enemies, the missions are pretty straightforward, and it's, dare I say, kind of boring. However, they serve as a good way to get a feel for the mechanics of the game and the base enemies, and you will be tested quickly as the difficulty ramps up from there. Co-op is a big emphasis in this game, and aside from the launch day problems with matchmaking, I really have not encountered any issues. It's nice that you can drop into the middle of a mission your friend is doing at any time, or drop out and leave if you have to with no real consequences. You can join randoms and open games from the planet map, or leave your game open if you're okay with randoms dropping in and out. The community so far has been very helpful and understanding in my experience. The friendly fire is expected and nobody really makes a huge deal out of it. This multiplayer setup is great for solo players who don't have a squad, but if you're wondering if you can play this game completely solo, you absolutely can. However, as a solo player, it will be much more challenging and your progression may take longer because you'll have to play slower and pick your battles in the higher difficulties. I played completely solo for my first 20 hours or so and I enjoyed it a lot, but it did take time for me to learn the enemies and how to counter them well, as well as unlocking the stuff that I needed to counter them. There are weapons and certain things in the world that require at least 2 people to interact with, so even if you have just one more friend, it can make a big difference. In the end, it just takes a different approach when you're playing by yourself. There are some pretty awesome things like turrets and drones that you can call in to help even the odds too. That's a lot of positives. So what are the negatives? Obviously, the game is only available on PS5 and PC at this time, and there is no split screen co-op. Every mission has a set time limit, and while I wish it was a little bit longer, it does help with the fast-paced sense of urgency the game tries to create. My main gripe is probably the movement and overall clunky feeling it has at the start, especially the sprinting. The default settings felt kind of slow and sluggish to me, and the sprint seems to start and stop on its own sometimes, and it can be very frustrating. Personally, I had to change my camera settings, sensitivities, and some of the bindings on the controller to make everything feel a lot more fluid and smooth. That could be a personal thing, but other people I've played with and talked to have had similar complaints, so I'm just putting it out there. Sometimes the maps feel a little too large and empty, and it feels like you're just running across a bare planet. That changes somewhat with higher difficulties because there are more enemy patrols to look out for, but another thing I've noticed is that points of interest tend to not really be all that interesting most of the time. There are some cool hidden things here and there, but usually it's some buildings you can't do anything with, you just grab some ammo and samples and keep moving. The game encourages exploration as that's how you find the samples and things to upgrade your ship, but if your main goal is to clear out the whole map, you'll be doing a lot of just running. I wish that samples were a little easier to identify and find on the map without having to just run around and try to find new POIs. But the biggest question mark with this game to me is the live service aspect of it. Helldivers 2 got off to a hot start, but if it cools off, there's never really a guarantee or assurance with these type of games that it will be here a year or two from now. Don't get me wrong, the devs have been on top of it, patching consistently since launch and even starting the game's first event in planetary defense already. As a live service game, of course it has the standard monetization strategy and battle pass setup with a free and premium warbond system. The real cash aspect right now is really not bad at all, but again, a year from now, those prices could skyrocket or be completely out of hand. The warbond system has already received a lot of backlash from players claiming that it is pay to win. If you're wondering why, or if that's something you're concerned about, I have a full breakdown of the warbond progression and super credit system available at the video on screen now.